to another episode of Catholic Table Talk podcast where everything Catholic is on the table. I'm your host, William Savoy, once again for another episode. Thanks for joining me. Hello, everyone on YouTube watching, also on Facebook as well. Thank you once again, first of all, for subscribing, liking, and sharing Catholic Table Talk on YouTube and on Facebook, and just by word of mouth. If you have any show requests, please feel free to comment below or get hold of me via email or in person or text or something. So I'm open to more show requests and also ideas for speakers as well. Once again, by myself today for this episode, so we'll get going. This is, again, another article I'm still working on a confirmation one, so look for that in the upcoming weeks on Catholic Table Talk. I'm working on that one, so we'll get that up as soon as possible. But this week we'll talk about a big question a lot of people have today is who's worthy to receive Holy Communion? And what does the canon law have to say about the issue and what's still unclear? And this is from Catholic.com, Catholic Answers. Jimmy Akin, he's a Catholic apologist who defends the faith really well. Also, you can see him at jimmyakin.com. So, it's a very short article, so once again, apologize for the shortness if you like a longer podcast, but articles are a little bit shorter. Jimmy Akin writes, with the U.S. bishops recently voting to draft a document that will discuss worthiness to receive Holy Communion, it could be helpful to receive the basics of what canon law currently holds. The two most important canons are 915 and 916, which we in canon 915 it says, those who have been excommunicated from the church or indirected after the imposition or declaration of the penalty of others abstain merely preserving a manifest grave sin are not to be admitted to Holy Communion. 916 of the canon says, a person who is cautious of a grave sin is not to celebrate Mass or receive the body of the Lord without previously sacramental confession unless there is a grave reason and there is no opportunity to confess. In this case, the person is to remember the obligation to make an act of perfect contrition, which includes the resolution of confessing the things as soon as possible. So that's what the canon law says about that. Only excommunicating, like we talked about in previous episode. Martin Luther, he was excommunicated also, I believe, from the Catholic Church. Just a lot of other people who've fallen away from being Catholic there. Some of them were excommunicated too, and people who did bad things, some of them was excommunicated. And then, of course, living, knowing that you have a mortal sin and not confessing it. So, both canons, he continues to say, involve situations in which a person is not to receive Holy Communion, but they deal with the topic from different angles. Canon paragraph 916 approaches it from this point of view. Of someone who is aware that he has committed a mortal sin, which is a grave sin, and has it been to confession. It expresses a basic rule that such people need to go to confession before receiving communion. Those in this situation are not to present themselves for communion. This rule is commonly understood. What is less well known is that there is an exception. It is possible, I did not know this until I read this article. Or at least if I did, I forgot, okay. It is possible to receive communion prior to going to confession in cases where there is a grave need and no opportunity to confess the sin. Which I guess, okay, take that back. I didn't mostly know that. So I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, so that's where it says make it act a perfect contrition, and the person returns to great grace by making an act of perfect contrition. This exception is possible because the fundamental requirement for the worldly reception of communion is being in a state of grace, and that can be achieved either by going to confession or making an act of perfect contrition with intent to confess. This expedition exception is not commonly encountered by ordinary members of the faithful, as there usually is not a grave need to receive communion at a particular moment, and it is possible to simply wait until after confession. However, it can arise, for example, in case of a priest who needs to celebrate Mass has no opportunity to confess to another priest. So you might say, whoa, our priests, they have more sin and they can still celebrate a Mass. Yes, if you have perfect act of contrition, yes, you can. And then we switch over to canon 915. My numbers mixed up. You can tell I'm not good at math. I wasn't good at math. Canon 915 approaches this subject from the perspective of those administering communion rather than receiving it. It identifies several classes of people who are not to be admitted to communion, meaning that it is to be withheld from them even if they present themselves to receive. The first two classes of people are those who remain excommunicated or indirect. These penalties fall from committing particularly grave canonical crimes. Even if these crimes, the penalties must be imposed or declared before the person is to be denied communion. Canonically speaking, if someone incurs automatic excommunication, he will not be denied communion until the excommunication is declared by the competent authority, who, of course, he should not present himself for communion. For 9:16. Notice that this can distinguishes between excommunication and denial of communion. Despite what you might think of the word excommunication, not everyone who is to be denied communion is excommunicated. Excommunication is a penalty that involves more than just being denied communion, and its effects are spelled out in canon 1431. So, I mean, 1431. We'll get to in just a bit. But that's what a lot of people think about. I'm just gonna throw them out. The president, Joe Biden. Um, they think that he. I haven't really heard that they think that he should be excommunicated exactly. Um, they just they just say that he needs to go to confession. Um, you know, but I'll get back to that in a little bit here. Canon 1441 says, an excommunicated person is prohibited from celebrating the sacrifice of the Eucharist and the other sacraments, from receiving the sacraments, from administering sacraments, and from celebrating the other ceremonies of liturgy worship, from taking an active part in the celebrations listed above, from exercising any ecclesiastic office, duties, ministries, or functions, so, and from performing acts of governance. So, once again, like I said, I know should have had a list here. I do not about just people who have been excommunicated from the church. And a lot of people might say, well, geez, is this something that the church does? Is this new? And it's no, they've been doing it ever since basically up until um the beginning of the church, when Jesus Christ founded it. It's basically it's up to the beginning of excommunication. And then we continue here to get warned. Let's say I'll have the link down so you can read and follow along if you like. Canon 1915 thus envisions a group of people who are not excommunicated but who are to be denied communion because they are abstinently preserving a manifest grave sin. It requires careful consideration for church authorities to assess that a person is in such a situation. Canon 912 provides that any baptized person not prohibited by law can and must be admitted to Holy Communion. Furthermore, the Code of Canon Law provides that the law which established a penalty restrict the free exercise of rights or contain an exception from the law are subject to strict interpretation. These canons require that a high bar be met before a member of the faithful can be denied communion. So once again, before, if let's say you were Catholic, or I was Catholic, and we were excommunicating, you can still receive Holy Communion up until they declare it. That's the same with anyone else who might be excommunicating. They can still receive communion up until it goes through. So, also carrying on, it says, in case of those abstinently preserving a manifest grave sin, each of the named criteria must be verified and interpreted strictly. The person must be committing actual sin. This goes beyond doing things that are foolish, disasterful, or offensive. Actual sin must be involved. So an actual sin. A lot of people they think they committed sin, but they haven't. It's just like they say, some things are foolish, some things are disasterful, some things are offensive, but actual sin must be involved. Furthermore, the sin must be grave, otherwise called a mortal sin. And in light of the strictness and which the requirement is to be interpreted, it must be clearly so. Doubtfully or arguably, a grave sin is not significant under a strict interpretation. Only sin that clearly crosses the line into grave territory will fulfill this requirement. So only a sin that clearly crosses this line into grave territory will fulfill this requirement. Not anything under. The grave sin must be manifested. Manifest. This is a term of art in canon law that refers to the sin being publicly known. If the sin is private or known by only a few people, it is not manifest. Under strict interpretation, I'm saying that right. The grave sin must be known by a significant portion of the community. Finally, the person must be abstinently preserved in the sin, under the strict interpretation that canon law requires. This condition is not fulfilled unless ecclesiastic authorities have made a serious effort to warn the person and giving him a suitable time to repent. Read that again. So must be abstinently preserving the sin, and then of course under the strict canon laws, is not fulfilled unless classical authorities have have made a serious effort to warn the person and giving him a suitable time to repent. Yeah, so they got so they must be mistakenly preserving the sin, and then they got to warn them in a suitable time to repent. That um yeah. So it is only when he continues to persist in the sin, despite the warnings, that he is judged to be extremely preserving in it. So, if you go around and rob bakes for a living, okay, let's just say that, um, known by the public because your face would be on the wanted posters around town and newspaper and probably maybe TV, radio. You rob bakes for a living, okay? Well, someone tells you, one of your friends, that you probably shouldn't be doing that anymore, and it's not good. But if you persist, and despite the warnings, and say, oh, who cares, I'm just gonna keep doing it, that's when you're preserving it. And that's why it's a mortal sin, because you know you're doing it. So we're finishing up. I'm getting closer to the end. Only got a couple of sentences left. A logical next question would be, who is charged with making these determinations? The law does not address this question directly, however. The principles it contains indicate the general answer. On the parish level, the role of making these determinations would ordinarily fall to the pastor. Given the seriousness with which canon law takes the right to takes the right of the faithful, uh, yeah, let me excuse that again. Given the seriousness with which canon law takes the right of the faithful to receive communion, apart from very special circumstances, other individuals in the parish should consult with the pastor before determining that a parishioner is not to be admitted. On a diocese level, the authority to make the determination falls to the bishop. The same applies in cases of doubt on the parish level, and the bishop is to be consulted whenever a question arises about a particular case. The public attention has been drawn to this issue because of the possibility of the bishops of the United States might promulgate a document addressing the situation of politicians who support abortion and other positions contrary to Catholic teaching. Speaking of which, like Joe Biden and just any other politicians in Congress. And let's say it doesn't fall to Congress or the president, it also falls down to the parishioners of the church. At the June meeting, the bishops voted to allow the Committee on Doctrine to draft a teaching document on the Eucharist, which would be considered for adoption by the bishops' conference at a future meeting, possibly in November. It was made clear that the draft document would not mention particular politicians and would discuss general principles rather than to seek to create a uniform national policy. Should the bishops vote to approve or publish such a document, it is likely will repeat the substance of a statement that the conference issued in 2004 called Catholics and Politic Life. That document stating, and this is the last of the article, that document stating, and I quote, the question has been raised as to whether the denial of Holy Communion to some Catholics in political life is necessary because of the public support for abortion on demand. Given the wide range of circumstances involved in arriving at a prudential judgment on the matter of this seriousness, we recognize that such decisions rest on the individual bishop in according with the established canonical and pastor's pastoral principles. Bishops can legal legitimately make different judgments on the most prudent course of action, pastoral action. So um they can make these decisions on pastoral action. Nevertheless, we all share the unequivocal commitment to protect human life and dignity and to preach the gospel in difficult times. And I quote, and that's the end of the article by Jimmy Aiken. So I hope you found this interesting. Hopefully you learned something about who's willing to receive communion and who is not. Of course, like I said, a lot. That's the big one. In in right now today. Who can receive? Who can't? Can politics can they not? Can just normal people, Catholics, can they not? So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. If you have any questions about today's show, or of course any show that I do, please drop them in the comments below, and I will get back to them as soon as possible. So, like I said, um, I always get enough of my kind of personal takes in it. It's not really my personal takes. It's still Catholic personal takes. So a lot of people might say, well, you can't say that. It's like, well, it's the Catholic personal take still. That's why we call it Catholic Table Talk Podcast. It's not my personal view. It's the church's personal. It's the church's view. And who Pope Francis and all the bishops, cardinals, it's all their point of view. It's not mine. It's mine because it's what I believe in, yes. But this is not about I'm telling you the way it should be. I'm not coming across like that. I'm just coming across as that's what Catholics believe in. End of statement. So, alright, that'll do it for me. Don't forget confirmation. Be on the lookout. That's gonna be a big one. I think you'll like it. Also, more guests to come, as how it can be. God bless. We'll see you, God willing, next time on Catholic Table Talk Podcast, where everything Catholic is always on the table.